Say hello to the world-famous Gamma Scout Geiger counter. This review is going to be unlike any that have come before it. In a break with tradition, I am going to start with a combined field test and product teardown. Right here, right now, it's test time. And that concludes the review of the Gamma Scout. Now, let's take a look back at how this review started. In the spirit of transparency, I will disclose that I have a few personal prejudices regarding this product. Let me start by explaining exactly what I mean by my personal prejudices. Sometimes, I make review videos for different types of radiation detectors, such as Geiger counters like this. In a few of those videos, I may have said a few disparaging words about the Gamma Scout product. Words like, piece of shit. In one of my videos, I made an offer to the Gamma Scout company, that if they were to send me one of their products, I would perform a full and fair review of their device. Furthermore, I promised to refrain from comparing their product to a steaming piece of feces. I even offered to take their product on a family outing to a uranium mine, and that it would feature in that video. I sent the company an email with the details of my offer, but they didn't respond. You might wonder if perhaps they didn't notice my email. Oh yes, they bloody well did. I sent the email the day after I released the video. In less than 30 minutes of sending that message, the video received a whole bunch of dislikes. Well, at least we were having a conversation of sorts. It seems I struck a nerve. Perhaps the most distinctive aspect of this product is the switchable filters. These are intended to allow the user to filter out alpha or alpha and beta radiation. Looking inside the product, you can see that the switchable windows are actually quite simple. The alpha filter is a 100 micron thick aluminium foil. The beta and alpha window is another piece of aluminium, this time a slab that is 3 mm thick. The headline specifications for this device are as follows. The product can detect alpha particles that have an energy level over 4 MeV. It can detect betas with an energy over 200 keV. And it can detect gamma radiation at energies over 30 kV. This means that it can also detect some X-rays too. The device is capable of displaying dose rates from 100 nanosieverts to 1 millisievert per hour. Looking at the system power, under normal background radiation levels, it consumes around 10 microamps. The power comes from a permanently installed lithium primary cell. This does mean that once the battery is exhausted, the product needs to be returned to the company for a battery replacement. That said, the company claims that each battery will last for 10 years in normal use. On paper, the specifications look very good, however, as I will show later, there are a lot of basic measurement issues with this product. The product has 10 membrane buttons, which frankly are awful to use. I understand the argument that they are to help keep radioactive dust from contaminating the unit, because they are easy to wipe clean, but that argument seems a little mute, when you consider that there is a bloody great big hole on the front of the product. The keys are completely unreliable, and in combination with the flimsy plastic case, gives a very cheap and nasty, creaky feeling. Frankly, the most useful button on the product is inside the device. It is the reset key, and it always works. I found that I needed to use this button far too frequently. Looking at the top of the PCB, the main component of the product is the Geiger Muller tube. This is the business end of the radiation detection process. Next to this is the 450 volt GM tube power supply. The count detector is essentially a simple amplifier. This is used to boost the small particle event pulses into something the MCU can count. Then we have the MCU itself. This is the brain of the product. It is a Texas Instruments 16-bit MCU with just 16K of one-time programmable memory. By modern standards, this thing is a dinosaur and essentially carbon dates the product design. Here is a piezo sounder. This generates the system sounds, but sadly does not create particle clicks. The Gamma Scout has a USB data interface, and this IC provides that functionality. There is a small configuration EEPROM to support the USB interface, and the USB connector itself. The product has a reset button, which is accessed by opening the USB cover on the device. This is the battery. It is soldered directly to the PCB, and unless you buy the more expensive version of the product, cannot even be recharged. There is a voltage reference IC on the board. I think this is used for the analog to digital converter, which is on the MCU. And finally, there is the data memory storage device, which is used to hold the total accumulated dose, and the raw dose rate data. Looking at the back of the board, there is the custom LCD, and the connector for those horrible membrane buttons. I'm guessing that at the Gamma Scout company, nobody had considered the effects of a curious, 6-year-old child might have, with that opening at the front of the unit. Well, that is one consideration that I do have to take into account. That mica window on the front of the GM tube is very easily damaged, and must never be touched. So, I decided to make a protective screen for the GM tube. I cut a rectangle out of a sheet of stainless steel mesh and then carefully glued it into the case. I used epoxy resin, and this gave a good strong bond between the metal mesh and the enclosure. And now the device is at least a little more child-friendly. Instead of doing what I normally do, which is to show each and every measurement that I make with each source, I am just going to summarize the measurements that I have made. In the case of the Gamma Scout, I need to make measurements in all three combinations of the filter window settings. Even by my standards, that would make for a very boring video. I tested using americium-241, taken from the ionization chamber of a smoke detector, and with natural uranium ore, that my family and I found at a disused uranium mine, here in China. I also tested using a thorium-232 source made from bits of a bullshit scalar energy pendant. Also in my small collection of test sources, is radium-226 from luminous paint used in an old Soviet-era military compass. I also tested using a strontium-90 source, that was originally the Czech source in a military Geiger counter. And, today in this video, I can show you the latest test source that I have acquired. Look what I managed to buy. This is a 1 microcurie, cesium-137 sealed test source. Better still, it is less than 6 months old.
Unlocking cesium-137.
Cesium-137 is actually a very important source to have for testing detectors. Typically, the factory calibration of the device will be performed using this isotope. And now, we will test with my most active source, my strontium-90 Czech source that was taken from a Chinese PLA, Type 77 Geiger counter. I made a video all about that very interesting device. Please see the description below for the link. In this particular test, the Gamma Scout behaved pretty well, but in most tests using this source, there was a significant abnormality. And here you can see the issue. If the dose rate is too high, the device will simply show 0. That's right, if you are potentially in danger, the fucking Gamma Scout will show an activity level of 0. How nice. I recently built a soft X-ray generator, specifically for testing devices like this. Unfortunately, I am still waiting for my replacement power supply, after the unfortunate demise of the old one. There is a video about how I made an X-ray generator, also on this channel. Before I dig into the results of the testing, I want to take a look at the GM tube that is used in this product. Actually, as far as I know, there has been 2 models used over the very long lifetime of this product. The LND712, and the Centronics ZP1401. I have talked to both of these vendors. Their products are so similar, that they can be considered as direct drop-in replacements. There are probably some small calibration differences between them, but in general we can consider them as being the same. Looking at the energy response graphs, we can see that for gamma rays, at lower energies, there is a 5-fold increase in sensitivity. This means that for an americium-241 source, the tube will record 5 times more counts than it would for cesium-137, with the same level of activity. The same problem occurs for any GM tube-equipped device, but in the case of the Gamma Scout, it has a tube that is sensitive to 3 types of radiation. Beta radiation will have its own response curve and alpha will have yet another entirely different level of sensitivity. These kinds of GM tubes are essentially a jack of all trades, but a master of none. To compound the problem, the Gamma Scout doesn't know which of the filters is enabled at any time, so it can't even apply different calibrations to match. It would have only required a couple of small micro switches to have been able to achieve that. Looking at the isotopes and the filter configurations of the Gamma Scout, and tabulating the data, there are some interesting observations to be made. First of all, looking at the gamma-only results, and comparing to the results from my 3 gamma-ray spectrometers, there are a couple of issues. Firstly, overall values are very low and do not correlate with my other measurements. In some cases, the Gamma Scout results are a factor of 5 lower. The second issue is that relative proportions of these measurements is also dissimilar to the measurements from my other instruments. Looking at the results from the open window measurements, it seems that the Gamma Scout will overread. When looked at in combination with the beta gamma window, it gives the impression of a far higher alpha count than can be expected. With the beta and gamma window, I can see that whilst the absolute results are not matching other instruments, the relative values are within a factor of 2 of what I would expect. In summary, gamma reads very low, alpha reads very high and beta is sort of in the ballpark. I guess the first thing to talk about is the general look and feel of this product.
You serious?
No, I'm not serious at all. What is serious though, is how much of a total pain in the arse it is to work with this horrible user interface. I mean, any product that can make the KC761 user interface look like it could have been designed by Apple, deserves to be totally destroyed. But then, that is sort of the point of this video. So, what are my overall impressions of the Gamma Scout as a product? First of all, it is not the scientific instrument that it is cracked up to be. It is also pretty ugly. Without doubt, this product has the worst user interface of any that I have ever used. The keys are unreliable, and the LCD is barely readable. The overall build quality is terrible, and despite the hype, the product functionality is pretty basic. That said, we need to remember that the product design is about 30 years old. If we look at other products from the same era, the product doesn't look so out of place. What is interesting is how much more colorful products were back in the 90s. What I can see that is positive for this product is its use as an educational device. The switchable filters are really nice to be able to demonstrate, firsthand, the different types of radiation and the properties they have. Whilst I have used this device for a few experiments to show my own children, I am certainly not suggesting that the Gamma Scout market itself as an educational toy. I don't think that any respectable toy company wants to repeat the mistakes of the past. In fairness, it is probably adults that could benefit most from just a little education in this subject. It is not my intention to have my channel banned from YouTube, because I helped some troublemakers manufacture some energetic substances. That said, this is an educational type of channel, and my kids certainly enjoyed learning some chemistry during the making of this video, so here goes. The energetic material I used to assist with my rapid teardown of the Gamma Scout is called silver acetylide. It is normally prepared by bubbling acetylene gas through a solution of silver nitrate. Whilst I was able to buy silver nitrate solution, the sale of acetylene gas is pretty tightly controlled, and for fairly obvious reasons. The precursor to acetylene gas, calcium carbide, is also very tightly controlled here in China. So there is nothing for it, I am just going to have to make my own. And here I am, reacting pure calcium metal with carbon, in the form of graphite powder. If you want to make this, then you are going to need a lot of test tubes. The reaction won't start until you reach the kind of temperatures that start to melt borosilicate glass. I found that the ideal size for the calcium metal was about 5 mm across. It is pretty soft and easy to cut. I put an equal measure of calcium flakes and graphite powder into each test tube. I then mixed it by shaking the tube. Afterwards I added an additional measure of graphite to cover the mixture and protect it from the air. Then after reacting the calcium and carbon, I dripped water onto my newly made calcium carbide. This caused acetylene gas to be released, and this was bubbled through the silver nitrate solution. The precipitate was filtered off and dried, leaving our energetic compound. I have a profound distrust of match fuses, so I wanted this pyrotechnic event to be electrically initiated. I used incandescent flashlight bulbs for the initiator, wrapped in masking tape, filled with our special compound, and then sealed the end with a pinch. Over the Chinese New Year holiday, we rented a house in a quiet area of the countryside. I have a small confession to make. I actually purchased 2 second-hand Gamma Scouts. One was functional, the other had a broken tube and power supply. So, one is a Gamma Scout, and the other is a Stunt Scout. I just couldn't bring myself to destroy a functioning product, even one I detest as much as this horrible piece of shit. So, for your viewing pleasure, here is the last stand of the Stunt Scout, viewed from different angles and at different frame rates. Frankly, I could watch this all day. So why is it that I hate the Gamma Scout company so much? Well, for starters, in 30 years, they never bothered to update their product. They achieved strong sales, through dubious marketing claims, an activity that I prefer to call, the science of bullshitting. Instead of investing in R&D to improve their product, they have just sat back, and bilked 2 generations of customers, out of their hard-earned money. Worse than that, they are shamelessly embarrassing the great manufacturing reputation, of the nation of Germany. A reputation that was built from the ashes of World War II, through stoic hard work, and tireless innovation. Shame on you. Anyway, that is all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed my little video, or at least found some parts of it interesting. If you want to see more of this kind of video, you could always press the subscribe button. This is not a commercial channel, nor will it ever be, so I can say what I want, and YouTube's algorithm can go and get f***ed. Thank you for your time.